Okay, I was a teacher for over 30 years and decided that we just needed an average everyday person in office rather than a career politician. So I guess this was like my last hurrah, and so I decided to run for office, and I've only been doing the job for a year and a half, so I kind of feel like I've just started to get my feet wet and just gotten to the point where I really have got some footing, and I feel like we are starting to truly make a difference, which is why I wanted to do this job to begin with, is to try to make a difference, to help people in my district first and foremost, and to just help get this state back on the right track. So I have 4 children. Now I have 5 grandchildren, which I didn't have the last time I was here. So, trying to leave the world a better place than we found it. And right now, I'm not sure that I completely feel that way, that some of the things that we've done have just been in the wrong direction, I feel like. So that's why I chose to run again. This is just a 2-year term, so it's less than 2 years when you're running for the next time, obviously. And I feel like there's still a lot of things that need to be accomplished, that there are a lot of people that I can bring hope to, and I've helped a lot of people along the way. I shouldn't just say I should say we. We have helped a lot of people. Yesterday at Richland over in Decatur, they had a forum, and the very first person that came up was a lady who came up and said, "Thank you so much. You might not realize what a big deal it is, but personally to our family it's huge. My daughter's had a lot of problems with the state trying to get her name changed for some reason through a marriage or something, I don't know. But anyway, because of that, she couldn't get her schooling straightened out. She couldn't get a record. She couldn't get this, that. It was just really messing up their whole life. And so a couple calls and we were able to get it straightened out. And it's things like that maybe to us that doesn't really matter, but to her that was everything in her life at the moment. So we do a lot of that, and I feel like that's what a good representative should do. It's really got 3 facets. One is that a person in that position should represent the people of their district when they go to the Capitol to vote. The other thing is they should go out to the people and inform them, like I'm doing, I feel like at this meeting here today, like I did at Richland yesterday, inform them of what's going on, what has happened, what we hope to have happened in the future, and then most importantly, to serve the people of our district and to do what we can to help the people of our district, to help the businesses of our district, just to help our communities be more thriving.
The forum you were at yesterday, was that a joint appearance with Mr. Bell? Or?
It was with every candidate. I'm not sure that they had county board. Well, yeah, there was. Every candidate was invited to come. They even invited the governors. They didn't come, but all the candidates were invited.
Because one of the things he's complained about is he says you will not appear at joint forums with him or debate him, which he wants to do. So
yeah.
Why will you not do that?
I did yesterday. He was there.
Yeah, but that's not a one-on-one. I mean, obviously, there are many organizations that would have asked you to do one-on-one.
Right.
You're not teaching anymore. That was used to be.
Right. You know what? I have done debates with him in the primary. I sat right next to him in that building there on North Main Street. We did one at the library.
This is the general.
Right.
People are paying attention. Why not now?
Right. It's all the same questions.
But people haven't
Right,
focused
right.
on the coming election. Isn't that part
Right.
of explaining yourself to the public?
Right, and that is why I'm doing this. I did that. I'm doing another one with the Herald and Review. I don't know what Mike Bell's style is. I don't know how many doors he knocks on. I know I try to spend the majority of my time knocking on doors. And I know just yesterday's a good example. We were both there at the forum. From the forum, I changed clothes and immediately went and knocked on doors the rest of the day. And then as I was driving from one precinct to another, we saw him putting signs out at businesses on Pershing Road. Well, see, so that's his style. This is my style.
How many hours a week are you knocking on doors now?
Well, if I wasn't going to meetings, I would be spending, I'd say about 35.
That's like a full-time job.
Yeah, that's probably why I'm sick, because I'm like doing 2 full-time jobs. And I feel like knocking on doors, I don't just do that in campaign season. I knock on doors. I've never stopped knocking on doors since I started doing this job, because that's the informing part and that's the serving part. And that's also where I get a good idea as far as the representing part of what kind of votes people want. How do I better know how a person feels than talking to them one-on-one at the door? And a lady just said that to me maybe a week ago. She says, I really get what you're talking about here, Sue. She says, I feel very comfortable talking to you one-on-one at your door, at my door, and I can tell you all of my concerns, and you're willing to stand here and listen and then take that and try to help. Where, like, in these other instances, I don't get that opportunity. So how does that better help me serve a person, or how does that better help me go and represent our district at the Capitol?
Is there a tipping for that, do you think, where if you keep being a state lawmaker, is there a point where you feel like you won't need to do that or won't want to do that anymore, or where you've got all the information that you need to make the decisions that you need to make at the State House? Is this something
I don't ever see that day coming that I won't be. That's who I am. I have always enjoyed meeting new people. I've always enjoyed talking to people. And since I started this, I just have not found a better way to stay in touch with my constituents rather than talking to them face to face.
If I spent 35 hours a week going door to door, I would never have time to write a story. You are also a legislator trying to write legislation, deal with other people, do the constituent service along with your staff. Aren't you sacrificing time for that by being out and about all that time?
Well, I don't always walk 35 hours a week. Obviously, when we're in session, when I'm in session, that's what I'm doing, is being in session and trying to maybe go to an event or walk a little bit. It all just depends on the season, what the weather is. Well, I still walk in bad weather, but...
You said earlier that things have been done that have gone in the wrong direction. I'm not sure if you meant before you got to the legislature or since. What are you talking about? What is in the wrong direction, and how are you trying to right it?
Well, a lot went in the wrong direction before I came in. And I won't deny that there's still some things I feel are going in the wrong direction. But, I don't rule not Springfield, but the Capitol. I don't rule that. But more so, I feel things... Here's how I'll use an analogy. When I started this, I felt in some ways so overwhelmed. I thought, how do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time. And I felt like the Titanic was sinking and I was at the front of the ship. And it was just a very sad feeling to have when I first took this job. And then I thought about the analogy of eating an elephant one bite at a time, and I thought, okay, we can't solve everything overnight, but every day we can do the best we can do to try to straighten things out. So I feel that the sinking Titanic is definitely not just floating around like a pleasure boat, but I feel that we have hit the rock bottom and we are starting to come back up. A lot of people are still out of work. A lot of people aren't being paid what they need to be paid, but a lot more people are working now than when I took this office. A friend of mine runs workforce investments in Decatur, and she said, Sue, right now, no one should be out of work that doesn't want to be out of work. We have more jobs right now locally than we've had since 2008. So, I feel like we're working hard to try to bring the ship back up.
What specific things?
Okay, so specifically,
Specific legislation
Sure.
that you think is righting the Titanic?
right, okay, let me just mention a few.
Sure.
One being, we paid over $2 billion back in old bills. To my recollection, that had not been happening. They finally, before I came in, started addressing it, but it wasn't, I'm not going to take full credit for that, but I feel that our whole freshman class had an impact on that. We all stood up and were very vocal in our caucuses about this has got to be a priority. This is the platform we ran on, and this is what we're holding strong to. So I think that's significant in itself. A problem that was there before we came was like when Governor Blagojevich took $2 billion out of what should have been paid into the pensions and spent it elsewhere. This time, for the first time in a long time, we made our full pension payment. We kept, in as hard a times as it is, when you're trying to straighten out the mess the state is in, we were able to fund education at a level without having to cut like we did in other areas. So these are things that I feel that we are doing that's putting us in the right direction.
But the reason the state was able to make that full pension payment and pay down its old bills is because they raised the income tax, and you're against continuing the income tax increase.
Right.
That seems to be contradictory.
Sure, I imagine it would. But you know what? Here's how the citizens view what's going on at the state. And I'm saying myself as one of those citizens. There is so much waste. There's so much fraud. There's so much Medicaid fraud. Why should hardworking people over here have their taxes raised for the money to be spent over here? It's not right. It's not fair. And I will never vote to raise taxes on middle-class working families. I've said it 1,000,000 times. I'll say it 1,000,000 more. I've said it since the day I took office. I said it at home long before that. That's not the right, fair, or just way to do it.
Well, how are you getting at that waste and fraud? Because a lot of people say it's 5%. You're still not going to cover it if you don't have a tax or another source of revenue, maybe a sales tax. How are you been in 2 years?
Okay,
now?
sure. So ways that we have attacked the waste and the fraud. One good example is when I was young, I had a friend just come up to me as I was knocking on the door. She said, we grew up in the same neighborhood. She says, remember, you used to always find the most pop bottles back in the alleys, because then back in the day, you'd find the pop bottles, you'd go cash them in, you'd get enough to get your little bottle of pop. So she says, we called you Eagle Eye because you always could snarfle out the most old, and you weren't afraid to pick up a dirty, junky, trashy one full of bugs and stuff and rinse it out and go take it in. Well, that's just my style. From that, it's funny because it's called the Eagle Eye Award. I got that for finding a government waste that I felt was pretty significant, and that was the sign bill, which has been passed from my initiative, passed the House, the Senate, the governor signed it. It's now law. It helps businesses because this company was almost harassing businesses when it comes to they were having to pay a fine because their sign would be too close to the street or on crooked or just penny ante stuff. That saved over $10 million a year.
I think IDOT disputes that, don't they? I think we discussed that last time.
I don't know if IDOT disputes it or not. But that's the facts that I have. So, and,
Yeah,
$10 million.
okay, so let me
$10 million.
explain this. All right, it goes back to a federal program about keeping America beautiful or something back with Lady Bird Johnson. And the deal was that if we would be a part, if Illinois would be part of this program, the federal government would pay for it, okay? Well, many states around us backed out when the federal government quit paying for it. That's another one of these many mistakes that were made before I got there. They were still paying the bill, but now the federal government wasn't willing to pay anymore, so the state of Illinois is picking up the tab, and the tab has been growing like crazy because some company got a hold of it and decided it was a great way for them to get rich. So I had heard that the amount is just going to keep going up, like anything else, every year. But anyway, we won't even get into that. So that is what happened with that. And so what we've said is back to the federal government, if you're not going to fully fund this, then we're not going to be a part of that program any longer. So, that's one example. Another one is that I was a very strong advocate that we need more auditors, and I know that we have to pay for the auditor. But if you pay whatever you're going to pay an auditor, $60,000, $50,000, whatever, and he can snarf out $1 million in debt, then the state is way money ahead on that, and that's already started. We have already voted on that, and that's another place that we're finding waste, we're finding fraud, and trying to get rid of it.
Who gave you this Eagle Eye Award?
John Bradley.
Oh, just within the caucus.
It's within, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it caucus award or like legislature wide?
I honestly don't know.
So.
I just know if you get over 10 million and you find it, then
Okay, well, that leaves about $4 billion in a budget vote. Paul Vallis says, you're going to devastate schools if you don't extend the tax. You're talking about little stuff here.
right.
And Governor Quinn wants to extend the tax. Are you going to vote for Governor Quinn?
I'll tell you what, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I am going to vote for people who represent the working class.
So,
I'll tell you that much.
Garner or Quinn,
But,
do you
well,
know
I'm going to
which?
go back to your first
Are you
question.
saying you don't know if you're going to vote for your own governor?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I'm here to worry about what I find important to our voters.
Well, are you going to vote
And
for
I
Governor
find important to our voters is jobs. You're asking me a question. I would be glad to go back and answer
Okay.
your first question, which was, I will say it 100 times. It doesn't matter to me if Quinn is going to vote to try to extend the tax. Well, that's what he'll sign if he ever gets it. I don't care if Madigan wants to extend the tax. I don't care if Cullerton wants to extend the tax. I don't care if Christine Radonio wants to extend the tax. I'm not going to vote to extend the tax. It's not right. It's not fair. I took a pledge the day I took office that said that I would abide by the Constitution. I think there are a lot of people over there who think that they're above the Constitution. I'm not one of them.
How does voting for the tax violate the Constitution?
It goes back to the pensions, and they think that they can just change rules that are not constitutional, and then they think that will affect the tax, which it does. I can't, deny that they're not all in the same big pot at the end. But the bottom line is, just because of the state is a mess, are we going to go back to, you really want me to raise your taxes, Bernie, so that we can keep spending money on waste and
Yes,
fraud?
questions here, but go ahead.
I mean, seriously, that's the truth.
Well, seriously.
Nobody
seriously,
wants
do you want to, according to your own governor, devastate education? But because you say school funding has stayed the same, they say 1 out of 6 teachers will have to be laid off statewide if you don't extend the tax. I'm not saying if they're right, but that's what they say. You don't believe that?
I think that what's going to happen is they're going to be forced to do what they should have done all along, which is to do the right thing and quit doing your pork projects, quit doing waste, really get busy and really get down there to Medicaid fraud. There's so much money out there floating around for these other things that it doesn't have, that's easy to just say, oh, we need money, let's make the teachers and state workers pay for it. Oh, we need money, let's cut class size, let's cut teachers. that's the easy fix. But my dad always taught me that the right thing usually isn't the easy thing to do.
You said when you were here running that you would go over the budget line by line. Have you done so? And so, where are those proposals to cut those things?
Oh yeah, I absolutely have more than once. And in looking, this is where I found some different things that I've already talked about. But I talked about grounding planes. I'm happy to say that they've finally started trying to sell some of the airplanes, which should have been done long ago. But at least, we're trying to eat the elephant one bite at a time. The cars, I'm trying. It's like fighting City Hall, trying to get agencies to give up their little perks that they're used to. But that doesn't stop me. I'm trying to get the fleet of cars reduced to an acceptable amount. I still feel that we should combine the comptroller and the treasurer's office. My feeling on that hasn't changed. I did, despite what my opponent says, I voted twice to take a pay cut. I'm trying to do that in the right direction. I signed a paper that vows right there that I will not take a legislative pension if it would even come to that day.
I'm not sure that I understand the thinking, and you're not alone. There have been others that did too. That's part of the job.
Right.
So why wouldn't you take a legislative pension?
Here's why I won't take it. Because I feel that it's the right thing to do. And I know there are a lot of business. I know there are a lot of people.
Reasons why.
That's why. Because it's the right thing to do. And I told kids that every day when I taught school. And they'd say, but he beat me up. Why shouldn't I hit him back? That doesn't even make sense that I don't hit him back.
So
I said, you need to come and tell me because it's the right thing to do.
Right?
Yes, I do.
So is that the right thing to do too?
I think it is the right thing to do. Yeah. They said when I went into teaching, they said, if you teach this many years and you do this, you do that, you pay into your pension every year, then you get a teacher pension.
They do the same thing when you're in the legislature.
Right.
But that's not the right thing to do.
It's a different job. I don't think the legislature, when I went into teaching, I looked at that as a career that I would do for my whole life, which I did. And I don't look at being in the legislature as a career, although there are a lot of people who do, career politicians do, but I don't think that's the way it was designed. I can't believe they ever put a pension in there to begin with, because I don't think that it's a part of this job. I think that the way our forefathers designed our Constitution was you go, you represent for a while, and then you go out and someone else tries.
So earlier you said this was your last hurrah. Does that suggest that you're not running the next time?
I can't even get through the next 29 days. I don't know what on earth I'm going to do after that.
Why would you use
I'm sick
words
now.
like last hurrah? I'm not sure.
Well, if you look at your whole life, you're a baby at home, and then you're a kid in school, and you go to college, and then you raise your family, and you're a teacher, and then you go and you try to serve your government. I don't know. The voters will decide that. I might not be doing this job in January. I don't know. Or if I am, I don't know what I'll be doing 2 years from now.
Just going back quickly on the cuts, do you have any estimate at all of how much in savings you've identified or plan to recommend as cuts? The total amount?
The cars and everything?
Yeah, what does it add up to?
I don't have a total dollar amount on it. No, I don't. And you know what? It's nearly impossible because I wanted to ground all the state planes except the ones for emergency medical use. The compromise was that they tried to sell half of them. You put them on a bid, you see what you can get for it.
Which is nothing so far.
Right.
Nobody wants them.
But, it may come with time, and I hope to God it does, but at least we're not paying for the fuel. The cars, you can put an estimate out there. Then after you do the estimate, you don't know how many will be sold. I'll be glad to try to go back through my files on my different bills and find total dollar figures, but they're not accurate because of what we just said. You can say a car, but then...
Does the state have?
Pardon me?
Do you have an idea of how many cars the state has in its fleet, and do you have a figure in mind for what you think is realistic?
What I thought was realistic hasn't so much changed as it is me trying to fight City Hall on that.
But do you know how many thousands of cars the state has?
There are thousands. I don't have the exact number in front of me. I have it back in my file.
I have a political question. Mike Madigan has probably given you a lot of the money, but I'm not sure. But you've been
Especially
running.
the money.
Yeah, we can talk, I'm sure you'll get to those. There's TV ads running where right now you've got a little girl who's about the age of people you taught in school, holding up signs making fun of Mike Bell. Do you know who that girl is first of all?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Well, I'm not going to say her name because she's a little girl, but I taught her brother, and there's 3 kids in their family, and I taught her 2 brothers.
A kid in a bad way to make a negative ad using some kid's image?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's factual.
On the substance, that is all about Mike Bell says he won't raise his pay. So you go back, your researchers or whatever, to his Edinburgh Village Board days, and they raise their pay from $60 to a monthly meeting to $70, $10 a month. And you are saying that he is basically an unethical person because he did that. Isn't that embarrassing to you and to the political process to make that claim because he raised his pay $10 a month serving on a village board?
And then they had to raise property taxes to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that a trivial kind of campaign that everybody hates?
That's, you know what, that's kind of what I thought when their very first campaign came out, their very first ad, and their whole campaign is to not vote for me. They don't even tell you who they are or what they stand for. It was just, let's beat up Sue Day. So what did I do? I continued to put out, as my ad has the little girl in it with the teaching. I was there when they took her picture. And she and her family agreed that they didn't see anything wrong with that, so I don't know. But anyway, I feel like I'm just saying the facts.
But he never said he would
the
raise
unfortunate
his pay $10
part,
a month on the Edinburgh Village Board in the past. He's talking about the future.
Right. He
So
says,
why is that the facts?
I'm just saying that, whatever you have done is what we have to go on. Because anybody can say they're going to do anything. I feel good that I have a record that speaks for itself. I can pull up the House bills and show you where I voted twice to cut my pay. I can show you where the court said that you can't do that. I can show you where the year before that's exactly what happened. I can show you where I gave my money to charity. These are facts. Those are his facts. These are my facts. I'm trying to get the truth out. That's the best that I can do.
Which charity did you give your money to?
Local charities, there's a whole variety. I can give you the whole list if you
I'd like to
want.
see it, yeah.
Okay.
Who paid for all these ads? These are all Sue Scherer ads that I received as a resident.
Oh. What are they?
Do you see those before they go out?
No.
There's
You don't
some-
even see them? You don't even know what's on them?
there's some-
Well, yeah, I know what's on them because they
compared
come to
the
my
Mike
house.
Bells, they're-
Oh, just you only see them after they put them out?
Yeah.
If
I
the
see them at
Democratic
my
Party-
house.
If the Democratic politicians charged with serious crimes shouldn't get a dime. Yeah.
How about this one?
We don't always know who's near our children. Sue Scherer is fighting to protect our children. You don't even know what's on these before they go out?
No.
Isn't that
I don't
kinda
think I ever
dishonest?
even saw that one.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them. They're all different.
Yeah, paid for by the Democratic majority.
So those are the career politicians that you're
That are supporting
referring
you?
to?
You know what? Anybody can pay anything they want for anybody, just like Bruce Bronner put $1.5 million in his account yesterday. I mean, anybody can pay anything they want, and unfortunately, anybody can write in the newspaper anything they want.
You mean to say these are going out without your knowledge or permission?
Mm-hmm.
Does it bother you?
Well, I mean, I know about them when they come in my mailbox. I'm not.
You don't have.
I don't
You don't see them, you don't proof them, you don't.
Do you not care what they say?
Of course I care what they say. But, you know, Bernie, I can't stop what you write in your paper.
I'm not a campaign organization working for you.
I can't stop what they put out on their cards. I can't stop what Mike Bell says that's untruthful about me on TV.
Are all these
I can't
truthful,
control
or do you
that
know?
stuff.
Are all of these truthful?
Well, I haven't read them that much, to tell you the truth. But yeah, I assume they are truthful.
Did you ever say if you're going to vote for Quinn?
No, I never did answer that
Are you
question.
going to?
You know what? I really can't understand why you're more interested in that than what nobody has even asked me today. The thing that I feel is the most important question in the room.
Well, we're not done yet.
And that is, what have I done to help
I think
bring
it's
jobs
fair-
to Springfield?
I think it's fair to consider how a potential state legislator is going to work with, the either governor.
Okay,
So I think that's why
I'll
it's
tell
a
you
fair
how I'll
question to
work
ask
with them the
you.
same way that I worked with the students that I taught. I work with all the students, no matter what
They
their...
were first graders.
Not always. Sometimes they were college students. I also taught college. So they were adults. But you work with, as you guys do too, you work with whatever comes
Okay.
on your
Let me
class
try
list.
again.
And
Do
I
you
will do the
support
same.
Governor Quinn's policies, and will you vote for him?
Here's what I support. I support working class families.
That doesn't answer the question.
Governor Quinn supports working class families. I support people who worry about the poor people, who are trying to make ends meet and can't. For example, minimum wage. I support whoever is in the governor's office. I will work with them. So if it ends up being Ronner, I will work with him. If it ends up being Quinn, I will work with him. If it ends up being that libertarian, I will work with him. But in the meantime, I'm working for the people of my district.
So you won't say as a Democratic state representative that you will vote for the Democratic governor?
I will probably vote for the governor because I feel he's more in line with what middle-class families look for. So I'll just say that because that's what I believe, and I think that's what the people of our district that I represent, I think that's how they feel too.
Is there any truth to the allegation that you voted to give Madigan $35 million in additional money for a new school in his district? It's been on TV as well as.
Yeah, you know what?
What does that refer to?
I don't know because I didn't put those out. I'm going to guess that they're referring to the Capitol bill, which is the best guess that I can give because they don't ever ask me if anything's accurate. But in reference to that, yes, I voted for the Capitol bill, and in response to that, there are a lot of things in our community, like our AFSCME workers got their back pay that there again, when we asked earlier what was wrong, that was wrong.
That
You
wasn't
don't
in the
negotiate.
Capitol bill,
No, but the money for paying the AFSCME back wages
Yeah.
is something that's all part of that bigger picture.
But you talked about the Capitol bill, so
And-
you want to explain
okay.
what's in the Capitol bill?
Well, see, what
You
happened with the
routed
Capitol
for-
bill is kind of a mess because there were a lot of vertical buildings in there. A lot of that got cut. The horizontal stayed.
I'm sorry.
You mean roads versus?
Yeah, roads versus buildings, that kind of thing. But, there are so many things that we have right here that I voted for a lot of things for our district.
Would
We
that be
got
called
things
for?
for you. I don't think so.
Okay, what's the separation between
You-
something needed for your district and port
Right
in
there.
somebody else's district?
a need versus a want. That's the difference between pork and what we need.
So if Decatur
Like,
got it, it's needed, and if somebody else got it, it's a want?
no, it depends on what it
Is
is.
anything in your district just a want?
Well, I have a lot of wants, but those we are not funding. But the
Yeah.
needs we are. Richland Community College expansion, I see that as a tremendous need. UIS and the capital money we gave them, I see that as a need. Lincoln Land College, I see that as a need. You know, and then the speakers they needed a school up there. It's all over the whole state. It's not just my district and his. We represent the whole state. So I felt that there were needs in our district, and the Ask Me Back Pay was a need in our district. And they just sort of threw that in at the end, and that was a tremendous amount of work that I did because Madigan told me in the beginning that I should not even sponsor that bill because it was never happening. And I said, well, we'll just see.
Were you the chief sponsor of that?
I was a chief sponsor, and I got 70-some sponsors on it, and the next thing you know,
And how much money was that?
I fought the law and I won.
How much money was that?
That was $50 million, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
But wouldn't something like that go away if I don't do the tax? Well, that's not going there. Okay.
Senate Bill 16,
Mm-hmm.
that is something that you support, I think. Can you talk about why and what prospects you make it has?
Let me get a drink, yeah.
Andy Menard School
Oh, of course. Oh,
funding formula.
Yes. On Senate Bill 16, I've been a strong supporter of the concept since back in the 70s when I was voting for school referendums back then. I fought long and hard as a teacher for the exact concept of what Senate Bill 16 is. So for me to have this happen while I'm in office is just sort of unbelievable the way the stars lined out on it. But I am a very strong supporter of Senate Bill 16.
What is that exact concept?
Okay, so what the concept is right now the funding is so messed up in the state for how they fund schools because every child in the state of Illinois gets X amount of dollars in their general state aid fund. The amount of money a district brings in is directly proportional to attendance and how many days a kid's in school. So the problem is, on top of that, the EAV, which is the Equalized Assessed Valuation, comes in from the different property tax holders, and their property tax goes in on top of the general state aid. So it's just so inequitable because school districts like Springfield Public Schools or Decatur Public Schools, they don't have, as my teacher friend used to say, they don't have that big fat tax base that some of the suburbs of Chicago do, or the wealthier areas. So what happens is they're still taking the state money, and then on top of that, they're plopping in the property tax money, the money from the local business development, and their students, if you go to the suburbs of Chicago, this is the truth, which I find it even hard to believe, but it is. Every kid has a laptop at their desk, and then they have a stack in the corner in case those break. And when they give state testing, guess what happens? They just all pull out the little computer that they've used all day, every day. They have computer assistants come in. If your computer breaks, they're right there to help you. We'll go grab you another one out of the corner. Do you know what our schools have? Our schools have a couple of labs that somehow, it's like a magic trick. I wish you guys would go spend a week in a school. You would be astonished at what schools do with the resources they've given, because they do a magic trick. Somehow, everybody adjusts their schedule so that every class gets a chance to go in the lab, and if your computer breaks, guess what? There aren't any more. I don't know what we're going to do. Oh, well, we have one part-time computer person who's over at the other school right now. So yours is broke. I don't know. The teacher's going to try to somehow figure it out themselves. It's beyond words. I've taught in these circumstances for 30-some years. I've seen it firsthand. You go in, you're allotted 30 minutes in the lab, and that kid's computer's broke the whole time. So another week passes, and that child never gets to touch the computer. But guess what? They all take the same ACT. They all try to get in to the University of Illinois under the same standards. It's not fair, and it's not just. It's not right. I've talked to the governor about this. I've talked to Madigan about it. And Senate Bill 16 is the best hope that I can see to try to start righting the ship on education for the people of my district. And I feel very passionately about that.
Do you think Madigan will call the bill?
God only knows. But I think there was a time when I would have said, doesn't look like it. But I'm starting to think now that there was that committee, I think that there's a better chance. I think that we have a chance now that they will call the bill. And I think that the people right now have to be very vocal. They have to be very vocal and assertive about the needs. And I'll tell you what, I'm right at the front of the parade on that one.
Pension cost shifting for teachers, do you think that should be shifted back to school districts? And do you think that should be part of this discussion at all, when you're talking about school funding reform?
I don't think it should happen, so I guess it doesn't matter where we discuss it at. But again, if we go back to cost shifting and you go back to a school that is like the schools where I have taught or the schools where I represent, you try to shift that burden back on them too, where are they going to come? We're going to have class size of 50. And then the few computers we have, when they break, they will never be replaced. So, and the computer teacher that's half-time will now be non-existent. So no, there's no way that burden can be shifted back on localities. I know that the speaker feels differently than I do, but I told him what I think.
So then, as a matter of fairness, should the state pick up the Chicago teacher pension cost?
You know what? I think we're going to have to look at the whole big picture. I feel that everybody that's a stakeholder should be at the table, including all the teacher unions. I feel that it's a very big issue. Nobody's denying that it's a big problem and that something's going to have to be done. Honest to God, I don't think we have that answer yet. I ask people at the doors all the time. I'm just still hoping someone comes up with an idea of how we're going to fix this.
In terms of Common Core in Illinois, and considering your background, do you like what you see from Common Core? Do you think it's something Illinois should stick with or drop, or it continues to make headlines?
A person at a door asked me that yesterday, and I said, well, my last year or two, really my last 2 years of teaching, we had started implementing Common Core. So I saw, as any new program, I saw a lot of the problems with it because, in the beginning. Now, I continue to stay in touch with teachers that have a lot of issues with it. But then when I talk to ISB, they talk to teachers that think that it's good. So I'm still waiting to find those teachers that think it's good, but there are a few, I guess. But, I don't want to be like an old fuddy-duddy that says, no, the old textbook way is the only way that'll ever work. And yet, I know the federal government is just famous for just like No Child Left Behind. Just dump it on us and then run and then go get a media blitz out of it. And to heck with what really happens from it. So I think it needs to be thought out very carefully. I took a class when I got my master's degree. It was probably in the early 90s, I'm guessing. And it was called International and Comparative Education. And they talked all about schools and governments, and the more local control of schools, the better education the students received. And at that time, they said the United States had it going on because the United States was very much a locally controlled. Local school districts were deciding what textbooks they would use, what curriculum they would teach. In other European countries and other places around the world, they weren't doing that. It was very much federal government controlled. And now I look, and here we are, 2014, and they have taken our way of thinking. And of course, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. So our government has now taken their way of thinking. And Common Core basically, first it was local control, then it goes to ISAT and state testing and state control, and now the federal government's gotten into it, and now Common Core is really what it is federally controlled education. So I think local control is the best.
So you think that the state of Mississippi ought to be able to deny that blacks were mistreated during Reconstruction or any of those things? That they were lynched?
That they should deny it?
Yeah, there were schools.
You're saying that local control.
The Mississippi State Board of Education banned certain books that allowed the history to be told other than in a reconstructed way. That's just one example.
Or the more recent one in one of the western states, same thing.
No, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be oversight. I don't think you can just turn your back and go poke your head.
Control.
Well, let me clarify. Thank you for saying that. Local control with state and federal oversight.
Okay.
And I know that's not easy to accomplish, but I think that's what it should be. Because, no, I absolutely don't believe that we should do that.
You hinted that you wanted to say what you've done for the people. How about telling us the good stuff that you wanted to talk about?
Right. And, as I go door to door, it's jobs. And I see a little bit of a reflection of this with the economy. When I first started doing this and before I was elected the first time, every door was, I'm laid off, we need a job, we're out of work. Now I hear it. It's still a big problem, but I also hear the state budget is a mess, education is a mess. So as far as the economy goes, I feel like the ship's starting to come back up. We've done a lot of things for jobs. We've had job fairs. We've had job preparation events where we bring people in and we invite the public to, and we basically go flyer everything and get to as many people as we can to get them to come in and be prepared on how to go to job interviews. I don't have it with me, but I have with my walk cards that I hand out. On my card, I have a sticker, and on that sticker has our cell phone, our email, and it has a QR reader app. And so a person who's looking for a job, they can scan that on their phone. And I've appointed someone from my office to at least every week, if not every couple days, to update any job openings that they know of and to match people. Because my friend who works at Workforce Investments in Decatur that I've known my whole life is the one that said that, the jobs are doing better now. And she said that the biggest disconnect right now is connecting the out-of-work person with the job that's out there that fits their skill set. So that's what I'm hoping to do with this program that I'm doing, is trying to connect the out-of-work person with the job that's out there and available. And as I go to doors, I tell people all the time about workforce investment. I would appreciate if you guys would put that in your article to let people know that workforce investment is here for you. So if you're out of work, go there and for free, they will help you find a job. Also, Lincoln Land has a career center. We called them in when we did our event at the library of trying to help people get prepared for work, and they'll do the same thing. They'll sit there and help you fill out your applications. A lot of times people don't have a computer, or, you go on and it keeps knocking you off, and they can help you work through the kinks on the computer to get your application filed. So, I think that's probably the main focus that I've had, is doing everything that I can think of to put people back to work. We've brought a summer job program to Springfield. We brought a summer job program to Decatur. A lot of those kids, I talked to them personally, and I said, this is your chance to prove yourself. They went out, they proved themselves, and then the employer hired them on as a full-time employee after the summer job program ended. So, that was another thing that I felt was effective. The other thing is just service to our constituents. A lady couldn't get her medications, they wouldn't answer the phone, and I don't know what all, they had all the records messed up, and we were able to get her medication. She's feeling better, she's going back to work. The lady with the name thing that I just told you about that just the other day. I had a constituent call. There's all kinds of constituent service things. I guess you probably don't want me to go into all of them.
The
But
minimum wage increase, by the way?
yes, I am.
To $10 or?
Mhm.
Okay. Because some people say that will cut, low-wage jobs, and employers will have to either lay off or not hire somebody. Do you believe that? Is that a problem?
I think it's something that anybody that's intelligent will look at all sides of anything before they take a stand. When I was young, minimum wage was a person who was in high school. Like when I detasseled corn, I made minimum wage. I was only like 14 years old. I grew up.
Hope you had a work permit. Just kidding.
I did. I did have a work permit. Carried my sack lunch on the bus. It was a horrible job. But nonetheless, then when I worked at Dairy Queen in the summers of college, that was also a very difficult job. I've always said the hardest jobs, physically, the hardest jobs pay the least. So, that's what minimum wage jobs were for, to help you pay for your clothes for school or to help you save back your money to pay for your college. That's not, unfortunately, the way it is nowadays. My daughter worked as a teller at a bank one summer, and she came home and she says, "Mom, I just don't know how this lady does it. She's got a college degree, so that means she's paying back her student loans. She's not from a rich family where her parents just foot the bill for everything. On top of that, she has 2 children, and she's a single mom. She's divorced." She says, "How does she survive?" She brings her peanut butter and jelly in a sack every day, and it's just the saddest thing. But she's working hard every day and not trying to live off the government. But for her to make 8-something an hour and try to raise 2 kids, minimum wage jobs are different now than they were back in the 60s and 70s. And I think it's time that the government wake up and realize that times have changed. There aren't all these big, high-paying factory jobs that there used to be just because of the technology revolution. We knew this day was coming, and now we're struggling to figure out how to work through this.
Did you vote for medical marijuana?
No, I did not.
So you would be opposed to any further expansion of legalization of the drug?
Yeah, I'm opposed to further expansion.
And on concealed carry, are you okay with the regulations that are in place now? Do you think they ought to be changed?
I was a sponsor of concealed carry, and I think people have a Second Amendment right to defend themselves. I hope to think that our lives are a little safer because the people who were illegally carrying guns now don't know if we are or not. I feel like right now what we need to do is to leave the laws alone that are in place, work through them, and as changes need to be made, we'll make the changes. I think that's part of government's problem. I have a perspective now, which I've always had this same perspective. In some arenas, the government just steps in and makes too quick of decisions. Oh, the people want this, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that, without thinking things through. On the other side, sometimes they get so caught up in, this is me and this is what I want and this is my line and I will not compromise, I will not negotiate on things, and then consequently, nothing gets accomplished. I think those are the 2 barriers that we're up against.
But as you talk about the government as they, you are part of they,
Yes, I am.
so it's we.
So I should say we, I should say that. The problem is with the we is that I go to the they as a part of the we and I say, on that concealed carry, I I more than once made a comment about just be open-minded to what other people are saying. Let's take all these facts into consideration and then make our best decision. Don't just say it's my way or the highway.
So any thoughts about militarization of local police departments and any state role in that?
Well, Illinois hasn't had to face that, and I'm going to throw in the word yet because we don't know if we're going to have to face that or not. I think there again, if the time comes that something like that, and God forbid that it would ever happen in Illinois,
I think she's
but am I talking about the wrong
He's talking
subject?
about like the MRAP that our sheriff's department got from the military, a tank-like vehicle.
Oh,
I
I'm
think that's a good
sorry.
idea.
I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about Ferguson. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're talking about,
Local departments are able to get military surplus
Mm-hmm.
too. Sangamon County Sheriff just got this giant MRAP that, was used in the desert and was surplus military, and they got it just for the transportation cost. Our sheriff's race, there's a debate if we should keep it or not because it's so big and imposing.
I guess I shouldn't even comment on it because I didn't read that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not so much a local issue, though it is. I mean, that's the way it's kind of playing it out here. But, for example, through a federal program, county police departments have 674 assault weapons in Sangamon County.
Through a federal program?
Yeah.
It
Okay.
comes through CMS actually, but it's federal surplus that the local.
Okay.
So, and
Police can
just
get
the
it.
whole attitude,
Mhm.
it seems, of police departments that we're gonna approach this in a
Rather than
military way
serious.
and all. What?
getting
I mean,
things.
Well, I think a humanitarian way is always the best way to approach anything, myself. But
We're coming up on the end. I have two things I'd like to squeeze in, if everybody don't mind. Video gaming, we're seeing more and more video gaming machines all over the city.
mhm.
Are you seeing the same thing in Decatur?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts on that? Is that something that concerns you? Are you fine with it? Do you have any limits?
Yeah, I have thoughts on that because I feel that that's a pretty scary way to have to fund a government is through video gaming. And I feel there need to be put limits on it. I did not vote for gambling expansions. Lou Lang knows where my stand is on that. I think there's got to be better ways.
And I hope you don't mind me asking this, but sometimes you're kind of a mystery to me. Sometimes when I listen to you, you sound like a Democrat. Sometimes I listen to you, you sound like a Republican. And I wonder, why are you a Democrat? What draws you to the Democrat?
I'll tell you two things. I had a Decatur Chamber of Commerce meeting the other day, and it was weird because everyone at the table I already knew before I ever ran for office, just from my life experiences. And Carla says to me, she says, Sue, if you'd just be a Republican, it would just be so much easier for everyone. And I just laughed about that. So my dad always said that there was a very fine line between a conservative Democrat and a liberal Republican. So I have always felt that I'm kind of right there at that fine line. And then my daughter came home one day from the grocery store, and this is now she's an adult, grown up, having a lot of pressures in life, I think, to think a Republican-minded way. And she says, I figured out today why I am a Democrat. She says, I'm a Democrat because I was at the grocery store and there was a little girl and she says to her mama, oh, we get to have breakfast now. And her mommy says, yep, we got our link card and we're going to be able to buy food for breakfast. And that's why I'm a Democrat.
Is there anything that we didn't touch on today that you would hope to bring up or
Um,
talk about?
Something, what was it? Oh, I did want to mention this. The MAP grants, we didn't talk about that. And that was, I think, the last bill that I sponsored that did pass. And, it goes in correlation with what you just said about why are you a Democrat? Are you a Democrat or a Republican? I feel The people that I most importantly need to work hand in hand with are the downstate representatives and senators, because like Chapin Rose, Raymond Poe, Bill Mitchell, we all represent the same basic area in the state. And Chapin had a bill that he sponsored. Chapin is a senator from the Champaign area, and he's a Republican. He sponsored the MAP grant bill, and I pre-filed and picked it up because I wanted to make sure that it didn't get killed by a Democrat, because I was afraid that it could have, or a Republican. I really didn't know. But I got a call from the community college that said there's a chance somebody's going to try to kill this bill. So I went and pre-filed for it. It passed the House. He had already passed it through the Senate. I passed it through the House. The governor signed it, and it's now law. And I think that's an excellent example of where people can say all they want about reaching across the aisle and working with people, but I think that's a good example of where I exactly did that. I saw the need, and it didn't matter to me if it was, and I had questions of why are you picking up a bill about that? I said, because it's the right thing to do, that's why. And that's what I try to live on that. So it's a law, and what it does is it holds some, are you familiar with that? It's the MAP grant money, and it used to be that they spent it all, and then if a person lost their job in, let's say, June, they had to wait a whole year before more MAP grant money came along, and then to go to school the year after that. So now they're out there for 15 months on the unemployment rolls and trying to make it on their own. So I think it's an excellent bill, and what it does is it holds some of the money back for the people who have lost their job, and then that money is earmarked specifically for them to be able to start school in the fall and not have that whole year layout.
And how much did that bill cost?
There's no cost to it. No. What it is we're using the same, right. We're using the same amount of money.
Just put money
We're
in
just
the
holding,
fund for the people that
yes.
lose their jobs.
We're not putting additional money. We're just holding, like, here's the whole pot, we're just holding a little bit of it back.
I see.